In the next few videos, we are going to discover another way of making our photos look beautiful.
This video is brought to you by Adobe Academy.
And for that, we are going to use two adjustment layers, which are called threshold and levels. They sound very technical, maybe even a bit scary, but trust me, they are going to help us a lot, and they are so much fun, and they are so easy to actually learn and use. And if you need a story behind this photo, well, I will give it to you. It's a photo that I took on my summer vacation in Montenegro, and this island right here is an island called St. Stephen, and it's one of Montenegro's landmarks, and I gotta tell you that the view is spectacular. But this photo is not right in terms of white balance, in terms of colors, contrast, and this is what we are going to fix with this photo with, trust me, some simple tricks, some simple techniques, and simple transformations. So I'm going to start with duplicating my background layer. You can see that it's locked right here. So I'm just going to go with Ctrl-J on my keyboard. You can go with Command-J if you're on a Mac. So the first thing that we have to do right here is we need to find the darkest spot in our image and the lightest spot in our image, so we can tell Photoshop from which it should take its information about the darkest spot and from which spot in the image it should take its information about what's the lightest spot in the image, what's the lightest piece of information inside this image. And to find it, we will use the adjustment layer called threshold. And it's right here in the adjustments panel, and it is this guy right here. It's the third one from the left in the bottom row right here. So I'm just going to simply click it, and you may see that our image starts to look just black and white, but it only has white and it only has black. And you can also see this panel, this preview box right here with something called the histogram. And histogram is simply a very technical term for displaying your information, or how much shadows, how much midtones, and how much lights you have in your info. And ideally, it would be if we had like an even amount of information on the left, which would be our the dark information. Let's call it like that. The information about the dark colors in our image. Inside, we will have the information about the midtones, and on the right, we would have, we do have information about the light. You can see that in this case, we only have some information in the middle, which means that we have information only about the midtones. So how can this all help us in establishing the darkest point in our image and the lightest point in our image? Well, simply if I move this slider to the left, you can see that this threshold level is decreasing, and our image is starting to have more and more white and less black. And if I keep going to the left, you can see that this spot right here, this guy here in the bottom, has is the darkest. Let's call it like that. It's the darkest. So if I just simply zoom in just like that, and by the way, I'm using a very handy shortcut of Control or Command if you're on a Mac plus the space bar that will temporarily initialize your magnifying glass. So right now, since I know where my darkest place in my image is, and I'm simply going to go to the tool that is called the Color Sampler tool, which is this guy right here, and it sits under the eyedropper tool, this guy right here. So I'm going to just initialize the Color Sampler tool, and what I can do with it is I simply can mark the spot where my darkest place is. So I'm simply going to click on it, and you can see this little number 1 being shown right here. So right now we have our darkest spot established and marked. So let me just go back to the full screen view. What we need to do right now is we need to find the lightest spot in our image. And to do that, I'm going to go back to the threshold layer, and I'm simply going to double click on this symbol right here to bring back the threshold properties. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm just simply going to drag the slider to the right till I find my lightest spot. But notice that in here we got the 255 value, 255, which means that actually we have some pure white information in our image. And honestly, it's not that good, because it means that if we just sample this white color right here, and I can simply quickly turn it off. So if I just sample this roof here of this building, that I'm actually not going to pick up any information because it's just pure white. There's no info right here. So what I would advise you to do is to simply, let me just go back So what I would advise you to do is to simply decrease this number in order to maybe like not sample the pure white color, but something that is just a bit off white, something like a very light gray. And if I turn off the threshold off, you can see that we could sample maybe some of these very light gray colors right here. So I'm simply going to go to the color sampler tool, this guy right here, and this time maybe I'm going to mark maybe this guy right here. So now we have established our lightest and our darkest spots in our image. So how does this all help us? What can we do with it? I mean, we established the lightest point and the darkest point, but we still don't see any results of what we just did. Well, we need to right now turn the levels adjustment layer on. Actually, we have to add it. So I'm simply going to click on this icon right here. And what we can do right now is if I just turn the threshold layers off, what we can do right now is we can actually pick up information about the darkest and the lightest point from our image. So we can now tell Photoshop which spot on our image, which part of our image we wanted to consider as the darkest, and we wanted to tell which spot on our image we want Photoshop to consider as the lightest. So how can we do that? You can see that we got 3 color samplers right here. So this guy, the first one right here, is going to allow us to establish the black point, and this guy is going to allow us to establish the light point, the white point actually. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click on this guy, on this sampler right here, and note that we need to have the threshold layer off, and that if we just sample information from the threshold layer, we are not actually going to get good results. So I'm going to turn the threshold layer off and be sure that this layer is off, and now we can simply zoom into our first like color sample right here. So remember that this guy was our darkest point, and as soon as I click on it with this color sampler, so I'm just going to click on it right here, you can already see some color shift in our image. So now I'm going to go back, I'm going to go back to my lightest point. I'm simply going to quickly find it. I believe it was somewhere here. And now I'm going to grab this bottom sampler, and I'm simply going to sample this guy, this color right here, just like so. And I hope you noticed a very slight shift in the colors as well. I'm simply going to go back to the full screen mode, full screen view, just like so. And if I now turn the levels off, you can see our original image, and these are our adjustments. But if you're still not happy with the result, although I think that it made a huge difference in our image, we could always just double click on this symbol right here to enter our levels adjustment layer. And remember that I said that it would be ideal that the information that we can see right here, that our histogram would be evenly distributed between between the left part, the middle, and the right part. We can now actually bring this slider a bit to the left and notice the darkest spots in our image as they are getting even darker. So we are actually increasing the contrast just by some simple sliding, And I can do the same with this right slider to make the light, in this case the sea, a bit lighter. So I'm even more increasing the contrast, just like so. So this is how you can easily make your photo look great, correct the colors, contrast, and the white balance. But I know that it might be a lot of information, especially to all you new ones, or all you new to Photoshop. So we are actually going to repeat the whole process in the next video.